All right, trumpet players. So, early to my New Year's Eve gig, and I thought I would pick sort of a colorful location, huh? I'm across the street from where I'm supposed to play, and this is the Galleria area of Houston. And with this selfie stick, I don't have to sit in the dark in my car, right? So it's still a behind the wheel video, even though I'm not behind the wheel, right? So anyway, I had a lesson before I came out here, and that's right, I don't take New Year's Eve off. I don't take New Year's Day off. We let our students take New Year's Day off, but we're working tomorrow. Anyway, I had a student before I got in the car. And, I'm not going to talk about the student, right? I mean, his teacher. There's a teacher that he has to work with as part of his school stuff, like a master class teacher. And the thing is I don't know him. I'm trying to get the glare out of here. I don't know him, and he might be okay, right? It's just that he prompted me to talk about this. That's all, okay? He prompted me to talk about this. And, hearing the story that my student told me. So anyway, try to get that out of there. Anyway, they were talking about mouthpieces, and he says, what size mouthpiece do you have? And he says, and the kid's playing on a 5C. And the guy says, oh, that's not a good mouthpiece. Now the student doesn't remember what mouthpiece he said he was supposed to play on, but that's the thing that I want to talk about. How can you, in a group lesson, which is really what those master classes are, it's not really a master class. They call it a master class so it sounds impressive, right? It's not really a master class, it's a group lesson. How can you, in a group lesson, ascertain that a student is playing on the wrong mouthpiece? Let me tell you what my experience is. Now, I'm not talking about this guy, remember? Let's keep that straight. I'm not talking about him, okay? I'm talking about what I've seen in this field. I've been teaching trumpet lessons. I've been teaching trumpet lessons since 1980. You guys have heard me say that before. Been teaching trumpet lessons since 1980. You know how long it takes me to figure out that someone's been on the wrong mouthpiece? It takes me weeks, maybe even months, to figure that out. It takes me a long time, because I'm not just going to say, oh, this mouthpiece is good and that mouthpiece is bad. I'm not going to say that, because it's not true. That's not how mouthpieces work. What you do is you try different things until you find something that works. Now, that's an expensive venture, right? So that's why in the lessons I have mouthpieces. And we try stuff out until we find something that works better for you. Usually I don't bring up mouthpieces at all until there's an issue in the lesson. And so it bothers me whenever my students come in and say, so-and-so told me I need to get a new mouthpiece. And I'll ask, because you can't assume that the people who are saying this are just going with the same old cliches that everybody else is going with, right? You can't just assume that. So I'll ask, what did he say was the reason why you needed a different mouthpiece? If the answer is, well, I don't know, that's not a reason to get another mouthpiece, right? If the answer is because the mouthpiece you play on is no good, that's not a reason. What kind of reasons are we looking for? Oh, you have this happening in your playing, therefore you might need a bigger mouthpiece. Or you have this happening in your playing, and therefore you might need a smaller mouthpiece. You have this happening in your playing, maybe you need a more narrow, not narrow rim, shallow cup. Or maybe this is happening to your sound, so maybe you need a deeper cup. That's what we're looking for. And if the student has, of course I'm getting all the information secondhand, but I've actually seen this online. I've actually seen it in master classes where I was like, once again, they're not really master classes, group lessons where I was auditing. I've heard this in, I'm a professional trumpet player. Sometimes the people who I work with are band directors and people who teach, and they all talk shop sometimes on the breaks, and now I hear them say that such and such a mouthpiece is a bad mouthpiece. That, what's most common in Houston is they'll tell you that the right mouthpiece for you is a 3C, a Bach 3C. That's a good mouthpiece and everybody should be playing on a Bach 3C. That's idiotic. That's like telling a basketball player everyone should be wearing a size 13 shoe. That's how stupid that is. This is very important. Now, here's the problem. This is the problem with the whole mouthpiece thing, is that if you get the mouthpiece thing wrong, it can actually cause all kinds of problems in your playing, and some of those problems can snowball into permanent problems. Let that sink in. Sometimes the problems that you create by playing on a missized mouthpiece can create, it can like offset your balance, your resistance balance, right? It can offset your resistance balance to the point where you're compensating with other things, and then you take that mouthpiece away, and now you've shifted the balance a different way, and it is possible. I've seen this before. It's rare, but it happens. People will, in this shift, end up getting things so messed up and out of whack that they end up quitting trumpet because they just can't handle that how much of a struggle it becomes. So the moral of the story is, be very, very, very careful about your mouthpiece. Don't be letting people tell you that this is a good mouthpiece and that's a bad mouthpiece without knowing anything about you. All right, you can't do that. That's not how the mouthpiece stuff works. I always like to look at mouthpieces like shoes, right? When do you find the perfect shoes that you can now you never have to buy another pair of shoes? The way I see mouthpieces, you spend your lifetime, your entire career, focusing in on the detail. So maybe early in your career you find the best rim size for you, right? Like for me, I found, early in my career, I found that the best room size for me was around the 1, a Bach 1, okay? Now, if you tell me, and this is what happened to me, if you tell me that the best size for everybody is a 3C, I'm not going to play good on that mouthpiece. Because of the structure of my teeth, I can't play that mouthpiece. It's too tight. I'll start actually bleeding into the mouthpiece because the pressure on these corners will eventually cut into my lip, and I'll start bleeding, among other things, right? So no, I can't play on a 3C. But let's say, so going back to the subject, let's say you figure out early on that it's what the rim size is that you need. Maybe later you figure out what you really need for a cup, right? After trial and error with the same rim size, you try different cup shapes and cup depths, and you find that this cup shape does this and this cup shape does that. See, what we're doing is we're focusing in on let me give you an example from my career, right? I used to play on, and I'm not going to tell you the brand, but I used to play on a brand that when I was playing on it, there was what I perceived as a very faint whistle over the top of the sound, and it drove me nuts. I couldn't stand to hear it. So it was nuts. I couldn't stand it. So I changed to another custom mouthpiece maker so the previous one, the one that had the hissing sound, that was my first time using a custom mouthpiece. But it had sharp edges. All of the corners on the mouthpiece were sharp. And I thought, okay, I looked at this other brand, I'm like, all the corners are round. Just a little bit more rounded than the previous brand. So I tried it. And so in a lot of ways, the mouthpieces were very similar. In fact, they're not different enough that if I'm on a gig that I can't swap them out. But that's what we're doing, is so you see what I'm saying? The main parameters of the mouthpiece were almost identical. All I did was focus in on how I like to have more rounded corners on the inside part of the mouthpiece. Does that make sense? So what we do over the course of our career is not try this and try that. I'm not going to try big and then try small. Oh, that guy just started his car from like 50 yards away. I've never seen that before. So yeah, I'm not going to try. Now, after I've found what rim size works for me, I'm not going to now try different rim sizes. I might try a different rim shape. Keep the same size, try a different shape. Might try a different throat size, or maybe a different back bore. You see what I'm saying? So as you get more mature, as you grow more familiar with your equipment, you don't look to change it, you look to focus in on what more specific details are going to apply to you. That's how we approach mouthpieces in my lessons. Not, this is a good mouthpiece and that's a bad mouthpiece. And think about it, right? if you're approaching mouthpiece and equipment that way, like this is a good one and that's a bad one, what you're basically saying is, I don't care about the student, right? I don't care that the student might be different. The people who tried to get me to play a 3C, they didn't care that I had three teeth corners that the mouthpiece had to go over. They didn't care about that. All they cared was that 3C is the right mouthpiece. You can't get that sound without the 3C. And maybe that's true. So maybe that's just not my sound, and maybe I have to make do with the sound I've got. Right? Yes, so the reason I'm making this video is because you need to be careful when people start talking about mouthpieces. You know, I see it on Facebook all the time. People will post a question, is such and such a good mouthpiece? I'm like, try it. You tell me if it's a good mouthpiece. Huh? Of course I don't reply to any of those because it's ridiculous. Not ridiculous that they asked the question, kind of ridiculous that they asked the question, mostly ridiculous that so many people will tell you without knowing anything about you whether or not you should play on that mouthpiece. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's what I have to say about mouthpieces, for now. It's all about, over the long term, it's all about focusing in on what's best for you. You don't just jump from this to that, okay? Once you find a parameter that works for you, you focus in to greater detail, okay? Zoom in and focus on the greater detail. That's how you navigate this whole mouthpiece thing. That's how you do that, okay? Not just what's a good mouthpiece, let me play on the right mouthpiece. That's not how that works. And so when you are in a master class or when you are watching a video and people say, oh, this is a good mouthpiece, you can't possibly know that from what they're saying. And you know what? By the way, it doesn't even matter how famous they are. It doesn't even matter how good they are. It could be the best trumpet player in the world, according to you. And they could be telling you this is the best mouthpiece for you to play on this mouthpiece, and they could be absolutely wrong. It could be the best teacher in the world, and if they don't know anything about you, and they tell you play on this mouthpiece, or don't play on that mouthpiece, right? They could be, and will most likely be, absolutely wrong. The way you find the mouthpiece, when I'm working with a student, we go very slow. I had a student recently, I lent him a mouthpiece. I think he had the mouthpiece for about 2.5 months. And he was a little nervous. And then I figured out later, he thought I was trying to sell it to him. I wasn't trying to sell him a mouthpiece, okay? It was that's what I do with all the students, and I explained that to him. I have mouthpieces in the drawer. I don't have as many right now as I used to, and I need to restock. What happens? This is very disappointing. What happens is I lend my mouthpieces out to people so that we can figure out what it is that they need, right? And then they'll quit and not give me my mouthpiece back. So over the years, I mean, I'm not saying that happens a lot, but it happens enough to make a dent on my, you know what it is? The ones who are reliable are the same ones that keep taking the lessons. The type of student that will keep coming back for the lessons is also the type of student that will give you your mouthpiece back. The type of students that don't come back are the same kinds of students that don't bring your mouthpiece back. So I'm not saying all my students are like that, but it happens often enough. How often? Maybe twice a year I get somebody in here. I recently got a student, and he was so enthusiastic. You know, we do this one free lesson thing, and a lot of people don't know that. So yes, I'm giving them an opportunity to get to know me, but I'm also taking an opportunity to get to know you when you take that free lesson, right? And this guy sounded like so sure that he was going to take lessons that I actually gave him one of my books. And I never heard from him again. Oh well. And then the same thing happened, like the best mouthpiece I ever had. I just couldn't play it very often because it was way too deep. So like on most of my gigs, I can't use it. And it was the mouthpiece I used on the Tom Bourling Bebop Band gig. And I lent it to a student who had been with me for about 2 months, I guess, maybe 1 month. And as soon as I lent him that mouthpiece, he quit. I emailed him, I said, please, that mouthpiece means so much to me. Please send me the mouthpiece back. Nada, nothing. I sent him a physical mail. Please send me the mouthpiece back. Nothing. You know, I recently had a student. He says, I can sense in you that you give so much of yourself. Well, I definitely give a lot of mouthpieces. Oh my. Yeah. Anyway, this is New Year's Eve. I don't know anything about this place that we're playing. I've never been there. We're in the Galleria area. This is a restaurant that I've never been to. And I heard that it's a tight spot that we're playing in. So that's fine with me. I'll put my earplugs in. It is a loud band. You know, I got a call right before I came out here, like 3 hours before, 3 hours ago, and someone asked me if I was available tonight. Little last minute, huh? So yeah, not complaining. You know, I'm a very blessed man. I'm happy to live the life that I live. I'm not complaining about the students. I'm not complaining about people who get the mouthpiece thing wrong. I'm not complaining about any of this. More than anything, this video is about opening your eyes so that when you find yourself in those situations, you're not convinced. Okay? Don't go down that rabbit hole. Okay? That's a very important thing. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. And I hope the bright lights weren't too bright. Very cool. These trees right here, like I'm showing you in the background, line the entire street. I'm on Post Oak Street. Let me see if I can get a view of that down the street. See if you can get some of that. You see that? How cool is that? I've not been down Post Oak during the Christmas holidays. That's a very cool setup. They're all synchronized. Very cool. So anyway, God bless you guys. Thank you for hanging out. We will see you on the next video. Happy New Year.